Ready, sir. Sir, welcome, sir. I welcome the chief guest of today's function, Sir Dr. P. Raghuram Reddy, sir. Sir, welcome, sir. I now welcome today's speaker, IPS President-elect, Dr. N. Raju, sir. Sir, N. Raju, sir, welcome, sir. I now welcome Dr. K. Chandrasekhar, sir, and Dr. Kishan, sir, chairpersons for the today's meeting. I welcome Dr. Umashankar, sir, IPS Telangana State Branch representative to South Zone to this program, sir. Sir, Umashankar, sir, welcome, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
I welcome Dr. George Reddy, sir, President-elect, IPS Telangana State Branch to this program, sir.
Thank you, Pawan.
I welcome Dr. Narayan Rao, sir, Treasurer, Dr. Sai, Editor, Dr. Vishal Akula, Chairman, Mental Health Awareness Committee, Dr. Fanikant to this program. I take this opportunity to welcome Dr. Jagannath, sir, immediate past President, Dr. Minas, sir, immediate past secretaries to this program, sir. I welcome all the delegates who have joined for this program, sir. I welcome you all. I now hand over the proceedings to President, sir. Ram Subbareddy, sir, please take over, sir.
Thank you, Pawan.
Sir.
Good evening to all. Today's Chief Guest Raghuram Reddy, sir, Speaker N. Raju, sir, and Chairperson Chandrasekhar, sir, and Kishan, sir, and Jagannath, sir, Past President, and Umashankar, sir, the Superintendent IMH. I welcome you all for today's webinar on mental health in unequal world, reaching the unreached. It is being organized by Telangana State Branch of Indian Psychiatric Society. And we are having our chief guest today, Dr. Raghuram Reddy, sir. Raghuram Reddy, sir, doesn't require any introduction actually. Sir is the senior most person with vast experience in psychiatry. He is a legend in the field of psychiatry. He is also famous for psychotherapies. Raghuram Reddy, sir, is having much interest in community psychiatry. Under his leadership, we attended PSCs to serve the unreached through DMHP programs. Even now, the present superintendent, Dr. Umashankar, sir, is effectively implementing the DMHP program, continuing the legacy of Raghuram Reddy, sir. Based on sir interest, Raghuram Reddy, sir, is the most relevant person for today's webinar as chief guest. I welcome you, sir. And personally, I want to say thanks. When we were postgraduates, we attended. You made us to learn the education philosophy. It was very helpful for in our daily living. And thank you, sir, for that. It's a personal thanks. And the next one is our speaker, Dr. N. Raju, sir. First, I would like to thank N. Raju, sir, for readily accepting my request. N. Raju, sir, is a eminent speaker. I attended all his lectures during conferences, and sir is the president-elect of Indian Psychiatric Society. And N. Raju, sir, is a very humble and friendly person. Under his leadership, Indian Psychiatric Society will function effectively and it will accomplish all the relevant works. I welcome you, sir, N. Raju, sir. Now, I invite Dr. George Reddy, President-elect, to make his remarks.
Thank you, sir. Respected President-elect, Dr. N. Raju, sir, our speaker today, Dr. Raghuram Reddy, sir, our past President, Dr. Chandrasekhar, sir, Kishan, sir, and our President, Ram Subbareddy, sir. Thank you for giving us this opportunity, sir. I think today we are choosing the apt speaker, sir, Dr. N. Raju, sir, being the President-elect, and his vast experience. I think he will definitely give us a lot of inputs from his experience and how our psychiatry, which is stigmatized branch, and how unequal our patients are. I think sir will focus on that. Without taking much time, I think we should all welcome and we should take good take-home messages from our speaker today. Thank you, sir.
Now I invite our Mental Health Awareness Committee Chairman, Dr. Vishal, to speak few words.
Good evening, all. As a chairman of Mental Health Awareness Committee and on behalf of Ipstsb, we are pleased to welcome you. Ipstsb President Dr. Ram Subbareddy, sir, and Dr. Senior Psychiatrist and Dr. Raghuram Reddy, sir. Today's speaker, Dr. N. Raju, sir, and Dr. Chandrasekhar, sir, and IMH Superintendent Dr. Umashankar, sir, and Ipstsb past President Dr. Jagannath, sir, and General Secretary Dr. Pawan, and Treasurer Dr. Narayan Rao, sir, Leader Dr. Sai, and members of Mental Health Awareness Committee, Dr. Dinesh sir and Dr. Fanikant. I am grateful to Dr. N. Raju sir, President-elect IPS, for being a part of this program and showering his blessings. He has done a phenomenal work in the field of psychiatry and is an inspiration to all. I am pleased to welcome you today's webinar as a speaker. This program is incomplete without mentioning my mentor and constant motivator, Dr. Raghuram Reddy sir. He is the pillar of community psychiatry and Telangana psychiatry. Thank you, sir, for accepting our invitation, for being the chief guest. Today it's going to be galaxy of stalwarts with Dr. Chandrasekhar sir and Dr. Kishan sir being the chairpersons. Telangana has a lot of young psychiatrists. We are doing the best in serving the community. We should continue to do awareness activities to mitigate the stigma attached to psychiatric disorders. With the continuous efforts, we can bring a positive change in the society. Thank you, sir. Thank you for giving opportunity.
Thank you, Vishal. Now I request our today's chief guest, Dr. Raghuram Reddy sir, to speak as chief guest.
Dr. N. Raju, President-elect, IPS, Dr. Chandrasekhar, Dr. P. Kishan, dignitaries on the dais, Dr. Ram Subbareddy, IPS President, Telangana State Branch, President-elect George Reddy, representative to IPS South Zone, Dr. Umashankar, immediate past President, Dr. Jagannath, Secretary, Dr. Pawan Kumar, Narayan Rao, the Treasurer, the Mental Health Awareness Committee Chairperson, Dr. Vishal Akula, Dr. Dinesh, Dr. Fanikant, of Mental Health Awareness Committee. We have gathered here. At the outset, I thank the Telangana State Branch for asking me to participate in this grand function of World Mental Health Day 2021. To celebrate this Mental Health Day 21, the IPS State Branch has chosen a very distinguished speaker, Dr. N. Raju, President-elect of IPS. I know him from a long time. Immediately after passing MD Psychiatry from Ranchi, he was in Hyderabad. We met, we exchanged some pleasantries, and then he moved to Pondicherry, then to Vizag. In Vizag, he held important positions of the Vice Principal, Andhra Medical College, HOD of Psychiatry, Andhra Medical College, Medical Superintendent of the Government Hospital for Mental Care, Voltaire, and very popular teacher among students and an excellent clinician. I would like to personally thank Dr. N. Raju for accepting our invitation and agree to be the speaker. We are awaiting your valuable words, Dr. N. Raju. Today's functions chairperson, Dr. K. Chandrasekhar, distinguished psychiatrist of both the Telugu states of Andhra Pradesh, very well known, managing director of Asha Hospital, the topmost psychiatric institution in Telangana and Andhra Pradesh together, and one of the few institutions known all over India. It was all because of his efforts. Recently, he has become an authority on Mental Health Care Act, and he has educated many of us in various fora about the Mental Health Care Act. He is very thorough about it. He is known as an excellent teacher, both when he was in IMH and also as a teacher of the DNB program in Asha Hospital. Then we have Dr. P. Kishan, also as a chairperson. He has he is presently the chairperson of the SARC affairs of IPS, and also executive committee member of the section on religion, spirituality, and mental health services. He has become very popular in his supporting role of religion, spirituality, yoga, and he has painstakingly and with great cognition gone into the Puranas of Indian past and utilizing it in mental health services. Dr. Raj Reddy, President-elect, was till recently chairperson of the state private psychiatry. He's a very busy person, and his presence is a support to us. Then the Dr. IMS immediate past president, Dr. Jagannath, who was a very effective president, and now he has ideas on starting non-governmental mental health services. He feels he should get into that. We'll have to foresee what he's going to do, how he's going to organize community services. And Dr. Uma Shankar, South Zone representative from Telangana State Branch, IMH Medical Superintendent. He has upgraded the institute after taking over, both geographically and functionally. He has organized various awareness programs for various people, judiciary, etc. And we expect him to do a lot more to IMH. Then we have the support of the Secretary, Pavan Kumar, Treasurer, Dr. Narayan Rao from Khammam, and Mental Health Advisory Awareness Committee Chairperson, Dr. Vishal Akula. He has become Vishal in his, by reaching the various places and areas by his awareness program. And he is also in the IPS Executive Committee. We are celebrating the World Mental Health Day every year on 10th October, we celebrate this to where we take stock of the situation, upgrade our knowledge, understand priorities, and plan activities. Every year there is a theme. This year there is mental health in an unequal world and reaching the unreached. This is a very important area. Inequities are well known. For us, who were in 50s, we were in a socialist India. Now we are no more in socialism. The word socialism is anathema. We have developed that. For example, 2% of the population of India has 50% of the wealth of the country. And it is the inequity is increasing all the time. Socio-economic inequity enhances prevalence of mental disorder, which further increases inequity because they have to spend on mental health. In India, mental disorder prevalence is supposed to be nearly 19 to 20%. That is, crores of people are suffering from mental disorder. And inequity has a great effect because they are not able to reach the services. The COVID epidemic has made it a worse crisis. There are many people, crores of people who don't have enough to eat and have a shelter. They don't, let alone services, mental health services or physical health services. And there is a lot of marked anxiety and depression, domestic violence on women, frightening anxiety, anticipation of COVID. There are children who have lost both parents and government has not come out to help them. Resources problem, deaths in the family, and so on. Or each COVID attack cost lakhs of rupees. Regarding global mental health, or the various countries, almost all the countries are affected by the COVID and result in enhanced mental health, ill health. They say, even in well-to-do countries, people who are suffering from mental disorder, only 15% do get treated. There is no awareness of it. It is so surprising for us to understand. There is no awareness. Person is suffering from depression, but he doesn't know that he has got mental disorder, and he cannot have access to it. So there is a great need for us to have awareness programs in various places, in schools, colleges, in various fora. The priorities wise, the more than 500 crores is spent, budget is allocated only to enhance one institution. Whereas for all the mental health, district mental health programs all over India, only 50 crores are spent. There is another institution in Tezpur, Assam, which gets 50 crores. There is a lot of inequality in the government allocated. The government expenditure budget allocation is 1.1%, whereas the minimum need is 2.5%. Of this 1.5%, how much is it given to mental health? God alone knows. That's the crux in which we are. And where WHO says the key for health is mental health. So there is a lot of responsibility on us to look into this, to highlight to the government the needs. I'll come to it later about Vikram Patel, what he has done in the global mental health arena. But we are in a, you see, Mental Health Care Act, I'm sure Dr. Chandrasekhar will agree with me, is a very enlightened act which has understood the needs of the people, of the mental health affected people, but it has not given budget. It's a blind offer without anything. What has it to do? Access of services. What about these NIMHANS and IMH are the only sources for access? Where should the rural area and slum people go? There is no allocation of funds for this. It's all probably what all Mental Health Care Act is, find fault with mental health professionals if they are doing some mistake, but not with a bigger absence of budget to implement the two things. One is access to the mental health services, and number two, there shall be no discrimination between physical health and mental health. But where are the resources? To meet the mental health problems with the lack of resources, my feeling is public health approach is the only way of looking into this. District mental health programs, apart from that, for it to be treated as a public health approach, we should do, as Dr. Vikram Patel has said, we need to do at the primary health care level. Dr. Vikram Patel in 2015, the Time magazine has listed him among the 100 most influential people in the world. He works from 3 places, Delhi, Goa, and Boston. He has done so much of work, and he has published a book which says where there is no psychiatrist. He has provided a manual for non-professional workers and volunteers who should work at the primary health care level. Otherwise, we will not see the light of the day. Mental Health Care Act will be on paper. He is on the various, Vikram Patel is on three important committees of Government of India, and he is the co-founder of a NGO activity called Swagat. And at the international level, he is acting, and he is with the London School of Tropical Medicine. He has nice ideas. He has worked a lot on psychiatric epidemiology, particularly among children. There is a lot to know from him. Another important thing, I was listening to one Lara Boyd, who is a researcher in neurophysiology in British Columbia University of Canada. She has worked for 20 years. She has got alarming results. She says we used to think that by childhood, the brain stops growing, which is just not correct. She speaks of neuroplasticity, which is brain when it is active also, it is brain when it is at rest also, when the person is at rest, brain is still active. The learning, she has worked on learning, and she says that there are three types of learning. One is chemical, which is short-term learning, then structural changes, and functional changes in the brain. One important thing she talks about is behavior affects the brain. It is not the brain affecting the behavior. It is the brain, the behavior affects the brain. There can be changes seen in the brain. It can facilitate neuroplasticity when the person takes up exercises, and practicing for a number of hours can change the brain. There is a lot of scope, and when she said about exercises, I thought of yoga exercises and pranayama. And like that, we have various avenues to think of, various approaches of public health and awareness. There are many people, even in educated countries, they don't know that they are ill, so the need for awareness. And our there is one thing which I was thinking of. There is a notion from some people that I would like to be, what is that? Known forever, my name shall be there. If we spend about 5%, 5 to 10% of our effort on mental health care to the patient, poor patients, slum area people, people who have no resources, we can reach that word immortality. One important thing is, there was a great scholar who said, Vaidyo Narayano Hari Kadandi, Rogyo Narayano Hari. It is because of the patient, your doctors are existing, they have livelihood, otherwise where we will be. So these are the things that come to my mind. I thank the organizers for allowing me to participate in this function. I thank once again the speakers of the day, Dr. Kenan Raju. Nice to see him. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Raghuram Reddy, sir, for your insightful speech. And you made us to learn the new perspectives like behavior affects brain. It facilitates neuroplasticity. and Rogo Narayana Hari, and all these things you have covered, sir. When you mentioned the responsibilities of the government and Mental Health Care Act, thank you very much, sir, for being with us. Now, I request Dr. Chandrasekhar sir, chairperson, and Chandrasekhar sir is a director, Asha Hospital, and sir is a worked in assistant professor in the Institute of Mental Health, and is a humanistic person with in treatment aspects. And I don't know, sir, whether he remembers or not. On the advice of the Raghuram Reddy, sir, I met Chandrasekhar sir regarding my thesis topic selection. Sir selected a wonderful topic thesis at that time, which was very good. And the topic was psychopathology, personality disorders, and cognitive impairment in COPD. Thank you, sir, for selecting me. Wonderful topic. And Dr. Kishan is the another chairperson. Now he is the dynamic psychiatrist in Telangana state. He is inculcating organization skills among other psychiatrists, and he is equally focusing on academics as well as organization activities. And now I request Chandrasekhar sir to take over the session.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Dr. Raghuram Reddy, chief guest of today's function. Dr. Ram Subba Reddy, President, Telangana branch of Indian Psychiatric Society. Dr. George Reddy, Vice President, President-elect of Telangana State Chapter, IPS. Dr. N.N. Raju, President-elect of IPS National Body. Dr. Kishan, my co-chairman. All my colleagues, students, and other dignitaries who have joined this evening to observe the Mental Health Day. In fact, over the last few years, what we have been witnessing is more and more participation of several young psychiatrists in carrying the message around about mental health. Probably 2 decades ago, I think Dr. N.N. Raju will agree with me, there was not so much of observing or celebration of Mental Health Week, as far as I could remember. But this has picked up in the last 10 years, thanks to the so many young psychiatrists who have joined the profession. I think that is one of the reasons. Dr. N.N. Raju is an erudite speaker. He is a product of Andhra Medical College, a very, very esteemed institution, very old institution. He did his MD from CIP Ranchi, after which he was faculty for a short while, I think at CMC Vellore, and then moved on to Vizag and has worked as at various capacities, including the principal of Andhra Medical College, and is an excellent teacher. At a personal level, I always like his wit and pun. I think I enjoyed it quite a lot in several meetings and in several personal interactions. It's a pleasant experience to listen to Dr. N.N. Raju. And coming to today's theme, really I'm intrigued by this theme, mental health in an unequal world. Unequal or inequality in which dimension? Is it in the dimension of only the reaching of the services? I'm not sure. Really, I'm intrigued by this theme of WHO this year. Anyway, I think Dr. N.N. Raju will probably educate us about this theme and today's Mental Health Day. And before I request Dr. N.N. Raju to start his talk, may I request Dr. Kishan, chairperson, to say a few words. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Respected President Dr. Ram Subbareddy, Telangana State Branch, IPS, and Dr. Raghuram Reddy Garu, today's chief guest, and father figure to IPS, both Telangana, Andhra Pradesh, and most of the leaders of the South Zone, and Dr. Chandrasekhar is a person, leader, and with his guidance, both Andhra Pradesh and Telangana state branches going since ages, and they are both are personal guide for us, for me personally, and all young leaders, Dr. George Reddy, Dr. Jagannath, Dr. Pavan, Dr. Minhaj, Sai, Narayan Rao, and Vishal, Panikant. I want to name this all young leaders because as Chandrasekhar said, the mental health awareness programs are increased since last 1 or 2 decades. And the Telangana State Branch after formation and taking lead, all old districts organization like Khammam Psychiatric Society, Nizamabad, Karimnagar, and Hyderabad Psychiatric Societies are taking lead in community awareness programs. Not only it also helping the increasing the market to the young psychiatrists. And I want to quote point here to be on the record. After formation of Telangana State Branch, both Dr. Raghuram Reddy as a founder president, and after that Dr. Sridhar Raju, Dr. Uma Shankar, Dr. Keshav Rao, Dr. Mayur, Dr. Jagannath, all the persons continues the legacy of most of the other activities along with community psychiatry programs. And I'm congratulating Ram Subbareddy. This is one of the excellent program organized by the Telangana State Branch. And he has succeeded to convince that Raghuram Reddy to be the chief guest. The success we failed in last 2 years to get him to the streamline. Of course, so many factors, I don't want to go for that. So even selecting Dr. N.N. Raju, today's I think he's one of the well-wisher of Telangana State Branch. He guided us in recognition of Telangana State Branch. I think I'm thanking the State Branch because I know he's the person helped us a lot, guiding us to get recognition. I want to put on record. And coming to the topic, today's topic, that is mental health in unequal world, reaching the unreached. So since the last 6 years, I'm observing both branches of AP and Telangana, 7-8 years. So our leadership of both branches has taken a lot of activities to increase PG seats in government medical colleges, especially. We succeeded Telangana, all old medical college, government medical college are now having postgraduates, and all private medical college, as usual, both states are having PG seats. Now in Mahbub Nagar, Nizamabad already got the seats, and Mahbub Nagar and in RIMS is on the way of getting the seats. That is to increase not only awareness programs will increase the market and awareness and increase the public for taking services, but service providing is also important both in private and government sector. I think both states are doing good role in providing service and good better institute. Not only IMH Vizag and IMH alumni, both students are going to all even new districts of Telangana. All our young students are going and taking places and providing services. And the government medical college having, I think we succeeded in last 4-5 years to provide under Uma Shankar getting center of excellence in IMH Hyderabad and Khammam and Karimnagar, Warangal. So these are all increasing services to the most poor people. So people go to the Gandhi Medical College and Kakatiya Medical College, those where the postgraduates are there, 24 hours services are providing along with this both Institute of Mental Health in both states. I think IPS has both states contributed a lot, providing services for this purpose. I want to put on record. And coming to the NN Raju, I think a lot of points about his CV was covered. Is from MBBS from Mandamir College and MD from Ranchi, and a lot of papers. He published recently written a book, a lot of his chapters in different textbooks, and especially IPS textbook of undergraduates. He has written a chapter in that, especially monogram on OCD. Currently, is a professor at HOD of psychiatry in GVP Medical College, Visakhapatnam, and president-elect of IPS. Everybody knows that. And we are going to see the leadership qualities for next year. And not, I want to remember, but most of the young persons may not know, he served uh, president as United Andhra Pradesh, and he served as a secretary of South Zone. He served secretary of our national IPS with a very good services, and that is because of that now he placed the highest position of IPS. Thank you, sir, and for acceptance of Telangana State Branch as a speaker, and over to NN Raju, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Kishan. Hope I'm audible.
You're audible, sir. You're audible.
Yes. Yeah, thank you. The president of the evening, Dr. Rama Subba Reddy Garu, the teacher of teachers, and today's chief guest, Dr. Raghurami Reddy Garu, Dr. Chandrasekhar, Dr. Kishan, chairpersons of today's talk, dignitaries of Telangana State Branch, President-elect Dr. George Reddy, the Secretary Dr. Pavan Kumar, the Treasurer Dr. Narayan Rao, many other friends. I think it is such a pleasure to see all friends of Telangana on screen, and hopefully all of us will meet in Vizag ANSIPS in January 2022, hopefully. I'm so happy to see Dr. Uma Shankar, South Zone representative from Telangana, Dr. Jagannath, past president, Dr. Vishal, a very active, jubilant, and enthusiastic member, Dr. Fanikant, a whole lot of friends. So if I miss somebody, please do excuse me for that. And it's really a privilege to be part of this evening, which in fact I am looking forward to participate in Telangana meeting somehow or the other. As Dr. Kishan said, I think I had the privilege, and I was the General Secretary when the state branch was carved out. Unfortunately, in the initial phases, there was some misconception about that I was the person who was delaying the formation, but in fact, I was suggesting the easiest way of doing things, but unfortunately, it got delayed by a year. And still, I was the secretary when it was formed. Thank you so much for being party to that. Another thing which perhaps nobody knows in the audience is that I miss it to be the member of Telangana Psychiatric Society by a whisker. When I joined the service, there was an unwritten law in Director of Medical Education Office that whoever gets into service should join Institute of Mental Health. And if you want any post other than that, you have to get permission from Dr. Raghurami Reddy Garu. That was an unwritten law. So when I went there, the Director of Medical Education said, go to IMH and report. Then, sir, I said, I can't stay in Hyderabad. It is too big for my shoes. So I can't live here. I don't think so then I had to go request sir that, sir, please give Director of Medical Education a call to relieve me and post me in Visakhapatnam. So that is how I got posted to Visakhapatnam. Otherwise, probably I would have the privilege of becoming the president of Telangana Psychiatric Society too. Thank you so much. Fortunately, Telangana I had the fortune of my son serving in Telangana, getting MD Psychiatry from Telangana, and also now a senior resident in Telangana. So I think my wish to be in Telangana has been fulfilled through my son. Thank you so much for all for those blessings, for those showers which you had give. For the support, but for which I would not have been the president today. I think I owe all my gratitude to the members of Telangana who had voted, who had reposed faith in me to be there at the highest position, even though I do understand that there are many more in Telangana state who deserve to be the president-elect before me. I think in front of them, there's I can easily see Dr. Chandrasekhar, Dr. M.S. Reddy, or Dr. Raghuram Reddy Garu, Dr. Kishan, everyone. I think you have too many more number of members who deserve to be president than AP chapter, I believe. So anyway, coming back to the topic today, I'm not very sure whether my computer allows me to share. If it doesn't, I request I think Doctor, I have sent it to Pawan. If he can share my slides, not many.
Technical team.
Pawan, can you share the slides, or somebody? I think I have sent it to one or two people so that somebody can share my slides.
Sir.
So yeah, today the topic, I think the mental health in unequal world is the one which I think the most important aspect of this would be reaching the unreached. That is not the caption, theme of the mental health in unequal world is the theme for the mental health day for this year, while reaching the unreached would be the topic which I thought I would try to cover. Not that the audience do not know about it, but I thought this is relevant for today's this year's theme. Next slide, please. So basically, the unequal world, as Dr. Raghuram Reddy Garu has already mentioned, I think there is inequality everywhere. We have, I think, rich and poor. We have young and old. We have male and female. We have educated, uneducated, rural, urban. And I think whole lot of inequalities we can see, including wife and husband. There is a lot of inequality in the house itself, even about a female child and a male child. So if you take the mental health here, I'm sure all of us agree that the mental illness in poor is far different from the mental illness in rich, even though the prevalence and the incidence is not different. The accessibility, the availability, the reach of mental services to the poor is far, far less than what it is for rich. And more so, especially when we know that most of the services are in the private sector. Mind you, 70% of the mental services are being rendered by the private sector. They are doing a human service. There is no convenience about that. But for a poor person to reach a private sector health services, be it mental health services or be it physical health services, it is not as easy as it is for the rich man. Coming to the young and old too, I think there is a lot of inequality, whereas getting both, I think young suffer and old also suffer for geriatric services or for few, whereas child health services too are far less. We know that the mental health services or the pendulum is right in between. Both the areas, young and old, are neglected. When you talk about male and female, again, the mental health services for the female are again, they are neglected not because they don't reach us, but I think the age-old traditional neglect to a female health, be it physical health, again, be it mental health. I think female has had, have been traditionally been always neglected field as far as rendering the health services to them. And in mental health, more so in a mental health, because we know that female have got a different set of mental illnesses. They're taking mental health is slightly different in female than what it is in male. We know about the postpartum psychosis. We know about the lot of other specific areas of women's life. the surrounding, the mental issue surrounding those pages is always unique. So we need to have some system where the gaps in rendering services to females is somehow reduced. Again, we have the educated versus uneducated. Unfortunately, mental health services, though in spite of the awareness to the educated, we all feel perhaps more happy to render our services to the uneducated, illiterate, and rural population, because who believe in us more than the educated, thanks to the Google, thanks to the misconceptions the social media has given, thanks to lot of other inputs from different media to the educated. Unfortunately, they are now socially blind. So, whereas the reach to the uneducated is far less. Once they reach, we can give services to them well, but unfortunately, they don't. I think we are not able to reach the uneducated as much as educated reach us. Same is the case with the rural versus urban. I think if you see the mental health services, be it private mental health services or be it the government mental health services, they are mostly concentrated in the urban areas. I think it is so dismally poor in the rural areas, especially if you go to east, northeast, and the so-called Bimarbi states like Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, Bihar, Uttar Pradesh, the rural poor are really poor. I think the same inequality we don't see in South, but that is so striking in North, and it is such a sad state of affairs. So again, the religious beliefs, the misconceptions, the so-called traditional, what we call the what we have all types of old traditional things, which are some are good. We don't say that all are bad, but unfortunately, we still go to the faith healers. We still believe, a lot of people believe in religious relief, though we don't. I think I don't mean to say that all the religious rituals are not to be or to be followed or not to be followed. No, I'm not going into the discussion. What I mean to say is that neglecting the services in and emphasizing only the religious rituals as a relief to the mental illness is something which is quite, I think, unfortunate. It happens in most of the, we have seen faith healers, most of the faith healers going, I think, taking resort to the religious uh, background and saying that they can treat with one this or treat with another, uh, whatever puja or something. It is fine, but unfortunately, we have seen a lot of mentally ill going into that type of trap and getting neglecting their mental health issues. Next slide, please. So then we also have the mental health. Please, yeah, mental health in an unequal world. We have already said that Dr. Raghuram Reddy Garu almost has covered all the areas and points which I'm today talking. There is a mental health inaccessible to 75 to 90% of the rural and the low income groups. Even to the high income groups, the access to mental health is quite less. And there is an unequal distribution of budget to the mental health. Dr. Raghuram Reddy Garu already said, if you see this budget, I think it is shameful, to say the least. The total budget to the health is somewhere around 2% or less than 3%, and out of which only 0.05% is to the mental health. And if you see the premier institution like NIMHANS gets 500 crores, and Dr. Raghuram Reddy Garu said already, Tejpur Mental Hospital gets 57 crores, whereas the National Mental Health Program gets 40 crores. Can you imagine this? Entire country gets 40 crores less than a 60-bedded mental hospital in Assam. We are not against giving good budget to a mental hospital. They are all, after all, our own brother and brethren who is heading it. Fortunately, the director is a good friend of mine, Dr. Diori, who was 1 year junior to me in Ranchi. We all appreciate for getting that budget, but what about the other hospitals? If you see some state hospitals, fortunately, thanks to the Supreme Court and National Human Rights Commission, I think thanks to the Channabasavana Committee, I think most of the mental hospitals are better placed now than what they were a few years back. But if you see the budget allocations, it is, I think, even shameful is also the word. I think we should find some other word than shameful. So I hope, I think it is also should be the part of Indian psychiatric societies to do something to, I think, being at the helm, I should not say that it should do, perhaps with the help of some influential members in the psychiatric fraternity, I think we should negotiate with the government in getting the more allocation to the mental health budget. Hopefully, we should, I think, at least in my term, I hope that I will initiate something in this direction, and maybe the little later, my following president should be able to achieve something in this. Then inequality in the mental health delivery. Again, it is something, if you see, the delivery of mental health is so different. What you have, suppose if you say child psychiatric services, I really don't find any meaningful or useful delivery that can be delivered to all the children in the country. You remember 40% of the population is children, and we don't have proper organized delivery system to the mental health in general and child mental health in particular. So there is such an inequality, even though there are DM has started now, but how many they can render to, and how much of services they can provide is a big question mark. Then you have stigma and discrimination. That to make the matters worse, there is a lot of stigma, we all know. Fortunately, I think Dr. Chandrasekhar has been telling about the young people coming out and celebrating or observing the mental health week, then mental health day. I think this gives us some amount of, I think, public attention, wherein I think the public attention is the only way where we can reduce the stigma. We all know that there is still a lot of stigma attached to it, but fortunately, more and more youngsters are coming into the stream and more going to the smaller towns, smaller areas, and I think appearing in media, appearing on TV, writing here, writing there, talking here, talking there, getting involved with NGOs, getting involved with a lot of public enterprises. So that all gives us a leverage, that all gives us a platform to reduce this stigma attached to mental illness, attached to the entire group persons with this mental illness, and inequality of opportunities to the persons with mental illness. Again, this is another big area where we all know that once somebody recovers from mental illness, the opportunities for them are far less in either getting jobs, in getting educated, getting married, or including, even though the recent Mental Health Care Act, thanks to the Care Act, there is some mention about insurances and policies. Unfortunately, still we are I think we still need to get the fruits out of it. I think IPS has a big job on hand to do something in this regard. Again, to make matters worse, we have COVID and mental illness. COVID affected all sections of people. Even though it affected every section, there is a lot of inequality or unequal services rendered, exhibited. At least it showed us our lack of preparedness when there is a sudden flash, sudden spurt, then we were all taken off guard. then the availability of services so less. In fact, all of us know that people were fighting for a bed. Even there were times when we were paying 1 lakh of rupees for one bed per day. That too created some sort of bad taste among the public as far as medical services were concerned. But they didn't realize that it is the services that required all that type of expenditure attention. Again, the medical fraternity have failed in convincing the public that the indiscriminate charges are not highly unjustified, even though I do agree that there were some areas. I don't say that everything was justified, but mostly there were at that time, I think, when people were taking such a big risk, when there is a big demand, when there is supply is so less, obviously the charges will go up. People don't realize that when you have, I think, large investments in beginning a hospital, in large investments in rendering, I think, recruiting people. Even the nurses were charging heavily during that period. Doctors, the consultant, even the pharma has increased its prices. The gloves were sold at a very high price. All instruments those were required were in the black market. So hospitals had to buy all those things. Injections were sold at 100 times more than what they really were. So this is all a hospital has to pay. And unfortunately, the general public don't look at the expenditure. The hospitals had extra expenditure, which hospital had to shell down. Was unfortunately, they thought that doctors were freezing. That is, again, there was an inequality in availability of services. And again, there was inequality of quality of service during COVID. Not only for COVID, I will come back to the mental illness and COVID a little later, but this is where there is unequal distribution, unequal rendering. So what I mean to say here is COVID is an example where if the system is unprepared, the inequality is staringly clear for us. It stares at us. Same is the case with mental illness. The mental illness and COVID, I see a lot of equality here in the sense that the governments are not prepared to see the, I think, the mental illness, crisis of mental illness. They don't look at the severity, the problems the mental illness can create to the society. Unfortunately, the misconceptions, as I said, were rampant. Even for COVID, if you see how the methods of treatment have changed, we have seen how the people were fooled and how the misconceptions have misled the entire groups. You have seen this famous Anandayas eye drops, Anandayas Pasarus, Anandayas medicine. So if it can happen to such a, I think, life-killing disease like COVID, I think what about mental illness? It is not a killer disease. It doesn't affect immediately. So more cold, I think it is more a cold disease. Then the people don't think it is an emergency, even though the results, the outcome are disastrous, more disastrous than physical illness, but people don't understand immediately. So the misconceptions are far, far more there. If it can happen with COVID, it can as well happen with mental illness. So the awareness, the knowledge, I think that is our responsibility to see to it that people are given the latest knowledge, people are provided with information. Fortunately, again, the mental health week serves that purpose very, very well. Again, there is inequality everywhere for us, whereas the mental health services are concerned. We know a lot of inequality, as we have already discussed about various budget inequalities. We have many mental hospitals. To tell you, there are about 42 government mental hospitals. maybe many more in the private sector too, though we don't call them as mental hospitals. If you take Asha Hospital, obviously we don't call it a mental hospital, but it is a specialized hospital rendering mental health services. While Bangalore NIMHANS is still, people in Kannada call it H hospital. So this is the mental hospitals, the services, there is a lot of inequality. The services provided in NIMHANS is far different from services they provide in Ranchi. The services they provide in some, so maybe Vizag Mental Hospital or mental hospital in Chennai. The departments, each, suppose if you take the, I think if you take the services, the paramedical services, I think almost nil in other. If you take Vizag, there is just one psychologist, clinical psychologist, no social workers, no occupational therapists, no qualified nurses, nothing. So I'm sure same should be the case with IMH Hyderabad too. So not that it, so basically you don't have social work network, you don't have an occupational therapy network, you don't have a psycho counseling network, you don't have a psychologist network. Whereas if you take NIMHANS, if you take CIP Ranchi, if you take Ehbas, Delhi, they have big departments. There is a lot of inequality. If you take general hospitals, again there is a lot of inequality in training, in rendering services. The services provided in CMC Vellore is so different from what the services we provide, say in Siddhartha Medical College or say in Gandhi Hospital or say, so again there is a lot of unequal services provided. Then you have private medical colleges, less said, better. I know there are superb private medical colleges. The two names which I already mentioned, CMC Vellore or Kasturba in Manipur. If you, I think they give, they perhaps train better than many of the government hospitals and government medical colleges. But if you have some medical colleges, I think all colleagues know them, that there are no patients, there are even teachers. Unfortunately, they're all our friends. They go once in a week, once in a month. So I think it's such a, I think, unfortunate situation. And again, I'm not going to blame our own colleagues. The teaching we do is, I think, next to nothing in most of the, including government colleges. I'm not saying, I'm pinpointing private medical colleges, even it's happening even in government medical colleges. Then there are other areas where are quite disturbing. Fortunately, it is not so much in our state or in our two Telugu states. It is not so much perhaps even in South India. Mostly we see them in North. Even in our de-addiction centers, if you see, jocularly one of our colleagues was saying that most of the de-addiction centers were run by either treated or still untreated addicts. So again, these are not the proper centers where mental health services are rendered in an equal way. So there is a large gap. There is a large, wide gap between the services that are provided. I think we deserve, the persons with mental illness, as Dr. Raghuram Reddy Garu said, Rogo Narayana, but unfortunately they deserve a better deal. The Narayanas deserve, the gods to all of us, they deserve a better deal. Unfortunately, that is not happening. Then even the outpatient services, again, most of the services provided by psychiatrists and the mental health services are outpatient basis. There are very few inpatient services available in the country, be it in the private sector, be it in the government sector. The number is quite far less than the number that is required. But again, is it worth it? Most probably the running costs, the availability of personnel, that is all the reason for unequal distribution of those services. Most of these services, I think fortunately that Andhra, Telangana, and even Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, Kerala, all 4 southern states have good access to mental health services. Whereas if you take North, if you take Chhattisgarh, if you take Bihar, if you take Jharkhand, except leave the Ranchi and capital areas, I think hardly anything. That is the reason why if you see psychiatrists there, each day they will see more than 100 patients a day, which is not the case with us in South. Because people travel 500, 600 kilometers with manic catatonics being carried to all the way around 500, 600 kilometers from hilly areas reaching. I think I can tell you that one of the Himachal Pradesh patients was attending to me in my clinic in Vizag once in 6 months. After he got transferred, he was a relative of one of the Navy persons here. But he used to come all the way from Himachal Pradesh to Vizag once in 6 months or so to just for follow-up. I just was laughing and saying that, why are you coming all the way from there? And he said, sir, reaching a psychiatrist itself was also very difficult for us because he gives an appointment after a week. And by that 1 week, I can come, show it, and go back. It's anyway, instead of waiting there, I can as well wait in the train and come here. So that is how the services are so better in South India. We don't know. And again, they are distributed in urban areas, as I already said. So Delhi has more number of psychiatrists than most of the states in the country. Again, almost I think 600 psychiatrists in Delhi and there are surrounding areas. So it is something very quite unequal. And the training institutions, another area, I think IPS has a big challenging and unfortunately probably a difficult area to tackle is unequal training. The institutions we have in the country, the training with the rendered, there are, I think, roughly, this is a 2019 figure, there are something around 213 training institutions who give degrees. Most probably, it must have gone up to around 240, 250 now, thanks to the recent approvals of the National Medical Commission for many private and government hospitals to increase the number of seats in MD psychiatry. There were 900 PG seats. Now it must be around 950 or so. At best, it would be 1,000, including this year's new approvals. And remember, there are 5 states which do not produce a single and has a single seat. Like in the Chhattisgarh is 1, and almost all states in Northeast except 1 or 2. Same is whereas Karnataka, Maharashtra, Tamil Nadu, and Delhi have more number of post-graduation seats because there are more number of private medical colleges, whereas Delhi, they have more number of government medical colleges. If you see again, there is a lot of inequality in the number of medical colleges. If you say take South, there are more number are in private sector, whereas if you take North, more number are in the government sector. The trainings are so different. As I said, we need to have some, I think we have to bridge that gap of training of the postgraduate students. Then what is the way forward for us? I think I am giving this cap. I think this slide doesn't show a very nice picture because we have tried this and I think, I don't know how many of you agree, but we have failed in delivering by adopting these systems. One, integrating with other services. We have been making this slogan for many years now, including what? I think National Mental Health Program came before I started my post-graduation. And we are asking the same question to the postgraduates in our exam even now. The question which they asked me in my PG exam, that was, what are the objectives of the National Mental Health Program? Again, we are still asking the same question in current post-graduation exam too. And I doubt we have moved an inch forward in integration of mental health services with the other medical specialties. I think the integration of Ayurveda, Homeo, Unani have made bigger strides. I think they have integrated better than psychiatry in most of the mental health services, sorry, most of the medical colleges. Then training the general doctors, again, we have failed. I would say that I think the National Mental Health Program, that is one of again the services which they come to the uh, training center for 3 days, 4 days, 5 days, 1 week, just like a holiday and go back. And I don't think we have really succeeded in giving any knowledge, any, I think, meaningful knowledge to the general, I think, non-psychiatric doctors, or in utilization of the ASHA and health workers. Again, this is another area where quite difficult for anyone to achieve that, because we know that there the targets is different for them. The people, I think, the immunization, be it the COVID, the vaccination, be it, I think, a whole lot of programs they have. Everything is on health workers, and once again, the psychiatric services will take the backseat. That is what happened. We failed there. Even the other systems, like bureaucratic red tape, as national, I think the district mental health program, if you see, I think less said about it, better. I think I don't know what happened in Hyderabad. I am the witness to what happened in Visakhapatnam. The funds released to the state government were lying undelivered for 4 complete years, because state government bureaucracy was not willing to have a separate account, and the rules do not allow them to be clubbed with the health budget. So there was a lot of ding dong moving here and there, coming here and there, and sovereigns going to the secretariat office for every meeting and coming back with nothing. And we are left with only 1 year of giving service, district mental health program, somewhere in 2011, 12, if I remember right. So again, it came back. Again, the services were given to the district DMHOs. So they were asked to operate, they were asked to organize. So I think it is such a peculiar situation. There is a lot of, I think, the bureaucratic red tapeism. The IAS officers wanted to take the upper hand in that. That is the reason why they wanted this to be handed over to the district mental DMHOs in controlling these funds. So that is how I think if you see district mental health program, that is the best program to know how to plan to fail. I think unfortunate, sad situation. Next slide, please. So then what is the answers we have? If there are the hurdles, how best we can come across? Perhaps the government should be better advised to organize more number of outreach clinics. If you see, most of our younger generation, most of our young psychiatrists are going to lot of rural areas, lot of small towns. I think I still remember people going to Mancherial, Adilabad. Of course, at that time there were no psychiatrists. Nizamabad, at that time there were no psychiatrists. Most of our colleagues went, or Vanapatti, then Kotagudem. So now, fortunately, we have regular psychiatrists there. If you see, even in another neglected area of combined Andhra Pradesh, the North Andhra, where I also hail from, I think all of us had gone to different taluk headquarters to reach out. I think even though it was for our survival, I think we served the unreached, reaching the unreached. I think we have been, for once in a week, we used to go at least see 100 to 150 patients. But that is something which, though we have gone for our selfish needs, I don't say that we are literally, there is something to serve the service and all, no. But even though it is for our own survival, we serve the unreached. We reach the unreached, and I'm sure same thing can be done from the, I think, organized sector too. Another area could be halfway homes. Again, fortunately, with the telepsychiatry taking up, we always can advise. I think governments and our NGOs can take up that role of people may not get admitted. They can come to the PHCs or community health centers, stay there for the entire day, and go back. So during that time, they can be in contact with one of the psychiatrists and the general doctor, the PHC doctor, the PHC nurse, the PHC community health workers, and the health worker, the staff, the pharmacists. All of them can coordinate with the central team and treat. Have a halfway, I don't say home, I would say halfway hospital. I think that would be a good idea to go about. Then we have been talking about this, another failed area, I would say, the UZ, training in psychiatry, which unfortunately, in spite of big talks, that only served us to give lectures, to get papers published, to get few awards, but nothing had happened as far as UG psychiatry training is concerned. Hopefully, this year, I mean, another 2-3 years, we have our own friend and very well-respected man, Dr. B.N. Gangadhar in National Medical Commission, a very key position. He is in assessment and rating board. So hopefully, I think we should utilize his influence somehow to get some importance. I don't say that there should be a separate paper, there should be a separate subject, even though it's a big talk, because it's not very easy to have a separate paper because already the undergraduate is overburdened. We can't burden him for some other thing. Maybe something like in our days what orthopedics used to be, have some small part of the subject, maybe 20%, 30% of the medicine be exclusively for psychiatric questions, something like that. We may have to think about it. Again, PG training in required areas. Another area perhaps we need to go forward. Way forward is because we are training postgraduates in areas where they hardly practice. I think we have been talking about, if you see, fortunately, it has come down quite a bit. I think be it negligence of the postgraduate themselves reading, or maybe the teachers themselves are not so well versed and well trained in that, so they're neglecting that area, either good or bad, I do not know. But the emphasis has not on the areas where they should be. There is a lot of, I would say, inequality. I think we teach things which they hardly practice. I think that has to do away with. The immediate basis, the scientific basis of mental illness should take an upper hand in this training. And also, need-based training facilities should be there. We don't have them. Like governments are increasing the number of postgraduate seats. See, there are almost 21 seats in Visakhapatnam, and total area produces somewhere around 30 postgraduates every year. I don't know what they do. They say that they churn out a lot of figures to say that still there is an inadequate number of postgraduates, inadequate number of qualified psychiatrists available in the country. It might be true if you take entire country per population per psychiatrist, but we need to keep them as far as the requirement need wherever they are required. Suppose, as I said, in North, you have very few psychiatrists, give them more number of seats there. Instead of increasing seats in Andhra Pradesh, increasing seats in Karnataka, increasing seats in Delhi, I think, create more number of seats in Chhattisgarh, create more number of seats in Madhya Pradesh, create more number of seats in Bihar, create more number of training facilities there. And also the training be need-based, what we need. If we need, I think, talking large, big things about behavioral modifications, cognitive behavioral therapies, different therapies, which unfortunately, once you pass, they serve the purpose of only reading it for the purpose of examination. I read it because my examiner asked it. I don't practice it when I come and practice in my day-to-day life. I think the teachers, I think I would say that most of us failed in doing that. In spite of being in the teaching faculty for quite a long time. I think we have not contributed enough in reducing that gap. And we have been, I think, as a president-elect, I have been talking repeatedly about this. I think IPS, in association with the stalwarts in the society, we have a lot of stalwarts, a lot of inputs can come. We have to reduce the inequality in all walks of mental health services, be it mental health services, be it mental health training, be it mental health budget. Everywhere we see inequality, and I'm sure we should come together. True, as a president of a very premier institution representing every one of you, I have a bigger responsibility, I do agree, but I need all your help, all your hands, all your inputs, all your influence to reduce that gap as much as possible. I know that we don't going to reduce the gap in the next year, next coming years, but people, big heads like we have lot many today itself. If you see the knowledge of Dr. Chandrasekhar or Dr. Raghuram experience of Dr. Raghuram Reddy Garu, the younger generation like Dr. Ram Subba Reddy Garu, you have Dr. Ashok Reddy, Dr. Uma Shankar, Dr. Pramod. I think a whole lot of people there, both Telangana, and we have equally good people in Andhra Pradesh like Dr. T.P. Sudhakar, Dr. Ila Rama Subba Reddy, Dr. Rama Reddy, and many more, Dr. Bhagyarao. So many of us are there. I think we can contribute something to the entire. I think hopefully I would be able to do something, some impact. And once again, I thank you all for giving me this opportunity of talking to you. Not that I know better than any one of you. I'm humbled. I'm privileged to be part of you today, and looking forward to see you all physically in ANSIPS in January 2022 in Visakhapatnam. Maybe as a president, I will have an opportunity to come and physically participate in one of the conferences in Telangana, be it Hyderabad or somewhere else. Thank you once again, sir. Once again, my respects and pronounce Dr. Raghuram Reddy Garu. Before I conclude, I just want to correct Dr. Raghuram Reddy sir that my journey did not start with Hyderabad. In fact, we had a very nice time when he came to Ranchi as an examiner. Even we had the pleasure of going around Ranchi on a scooter and meeting him I think, sitting on the bed in the guest house of CIP Ranchi. I'm sure I would just give them that recall. And I'm really privileged to be, sir. I'm really lucky that I know you. Lucky to have your blessing and your help. Thank you, sir.
God bless
and
you.
once again, thank you.
God
Thank you,
bless
sir.
you.
My pronouns to you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Raju, for that excellent exposition. You have really highlighted the various issues plaguing the delivery of mental health services across the country, but also suggested some solutions. And I think many of the members who have heard you today are not benefited in this regard. I do share your views about the National Mental Health Program. I think it is time that the IPS comes out with some cogent ideas about alternate models to National Mental Health Program. There are so many experienced members in the society. Probably those ideas can be gathered, and probably I think IPS should now take an active part in saying that 4 decades of NMHP hasn't fetched the results. So here is our model. Can we do it on a pilot basis? Somewhere, I think in your presidentship, probably you can initiate this an idea.
Yes.
Because for 4 decades, if we have sat quiet,
excellent,
then what is the alternative? So I think some disruptive thinking is necessary here. I think there are several members who can do that, and I'm sure we can come up with alternate models.
So thankful to you, sir. Absolutely. I think I can't agree more.
Yeah. Again, thank you for that excellent and brilliant lecture. And now I think, are there any questions from the audience? don't see anything.
No questions, sir. No questions. I think it is a oration. I think everybody is thinking it is a oration. Nobody is asking the question.
No.
I think what Dr. Chandrasekhar has suggested is perhaps, I think, definitely an out-of-box thinking has to come out of this. Out-of-box suggestions should come out, and hopefully I will have the privilege, if possible, we would ask Dr. Chandrasekhar to head a committee or something to do this job. I think I will perhaps will burden him with this, and most probably I think I will be in, personally I will call you, sir, and see what best we can do about suggesting an alternative to the national mental program where it failed, where how to fill that failure with a better model. I think it is a beautiful session. I think really, I think this is carry home message for me.
Thank you.
So I think there are no questions, but I want to put few comments. Sir, your wonderful like oration, like presentation, and you told about contribution of government medical college and private medical college, and distribution of services, inequality services, some state inequality, so different, some states they are not having a medical colleges, PG seats, especially the number of PG seats, and your especially the way forward you have given shows that your vision for the future and your direction and clarity of future planning. I think we are expecting a lot in your leadership in IPS. I think you are the thinking about utilizing the Chandrasekhar and Dr. Gangadhar services. I think a lot of legends are there. I think you are clever enough to do. I think as a secretary of South Zone, as a secretary of National IPS, and as a president of United Andhra, you got a lot of grip over the IPS activities. We are expecting a lot. And before closing my remarks, I want to alert Dr. Ramagam Reddy, sir. Sir, your beloved student, Dr. Sudhakar Rao from UK joined the group, sir. Is blessed to see your presence in the Zoom. And Dr. Nagreddy also joined from Kurnool, and is also feeling the same. And I'm appreciating Dr. Narasimha Reddy, organizing chairperson of ANSIPS Vizag, is there continuously since beginning. Thank you, sir, for joining us. And we are all coming to Vizag, sir, and especially to see the taking over function of Dr. N. Raju. Thank you, sir. And certainly the Telangana State Bank already started 6 months, since 6 months, inviting you and sharing your guidance and blessings to Telangana State Bank. Certainly we will continue as we wish. Thank you. And over to organizers. Thank you.
President, sir. Sir, President, sir.
Ram Subbareddy, please.
Sir, there is with permission of the chair, sir, there is one comment from Nagreddy, sir. It's a very practical talk, sir. As you rightly mentioned, top institutes do not have social workers. What about small hospitals like us, Dr. K. Nagreddy, sir?
That's what, when we say that even top institutions do not have, that is where the inequality is glaringly glaring at us. So this is where we need to, I think, some model, as Dr. Chandrasekhar has said, that we need to bring some model to reduce this gap of delivering the mental health services. Even the institutions do not have. So what alternatives we can give it in training, alternatives in providing, at least reducing that gap when those trainees go out and practice without these services. This is where perhaps NMH failed. This is where I think IPS should come out with an alternative model and to see to it that the mental health rendered to the persons is not compromised. May not be equalized, but at least it should not be compromised. And I think that is where we stand. That is where we should work on.
President sir, Ram Subbarati sir, please take over. You are on mute, sir. Please unmute, sir.
Am I audible now?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Thank you, NN Raju sir, for covering all the aspects of this mental health care, the mental health awareness, and regarding the inequality in the services and reaching the unreached. And he covered all the deficiencies and what to do in the future. And even in the state government institutions also, we are not having any even clinical psychology, psychosocial workers, and all these even nursing staff. Still there are deficiencies. Governments are not taking interest. So this is the state of affairs almost everywhere. I think in Andhra also, I think only one psychologist is there. So all psychologists are on contract basis only. So we are facing a lot of difficulty, even in spite of repeating requests and pursuing the things, we are not getting the things. And at the same time, sir, you are mentioned regarding the most of the medical colleges are having more number of seats in South India. I don't know regarding the Madhya Pradesh also, they are having very few departments in Madhya Pradesh, not only Chhattisgarh. At that time, only one Bhopal was having only a department in psychiatry for the entire state. I don't know now whether the things are improved or not. Thank you, sir, for covering all aspects.
My privilege.
Yeah. Pawan?
Sir.
So, next, you take over.
Sir, next is
vote of thanks.
Vote of thanks, sir. So, Mina sir, to propose vote of thanks.
Thank you. On behalf of Indian Psychiatric Society, Telangana State Branch, I would like to thank our President-elect, Dr. NN Raju sir, for his excellent talk and his excellent view on and guidance towards providing better mental health and thinking about reaching to unreached and mental health for in unequal world, reaching the unreached. I would also like to thank our chief guest, Dr. P. Raghuram Reddy sir, for his constant support to IPS Telangana State Branch and IPS National as well. I would like to thank our chairperson, Dr. Chandrasekhar sir, Director Asha Hospital, Dr. P. Kishan sir, past President IPS South Zone. I would also like to thank Dr. Ram Subbarati sir, President IPS TSB, Dr. George Reddy sir, Vice President IPS TSB, Dr. Pawan Kumar Kulkarni, Dr. Narayan Rao sir, Dr. Sai Krishna, Dr. Uma Shankar sir, Dr. Jagannath sir, Dr. Vishal, Dr. Dinesh, and Dr. Fanikan. I would also like to thank all the participants who have sat for 1.5 hours with us. Thank you one and all the dignitaries present, Dr. Narasimha Reddy sir, Dr. Mayunath Reddy sir, who were present since the beginning. Thanks a lot, sir. I would also like to thank Hansh Pharmaceuticals for giving us the support and technical person Anil Martin for supporting us. Thank you. Thank you one and all.
Thank you once again. Thank you all. Namaste. See you in Vizag. Right.
We will meet in Vizag, sir.
Right, sir. Right. I'm leaving, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sir.
Thank you, sir.
NN Raju, thank you once again. God bless you.
Thank you very much, sir.
Sir, what about national anthem, sir?
Sir.
I think we
Sir,
can all stand up for national anthem.
Stand up for the national anthem.
Anil, attention to Anil, whether
Pawan?
Sir.
It is a recorded one.
It is recorded.
पंजाब सिंधु गुजरात मराठा द्राविड़ उत्कल गंगा विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उत्कल जलधि तरंगा तब शुभ नामे जागे तब शुभ आशीष मांगे गाहे तब जय गाथा जन गण मंगल दायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे